The Rings of Power Season 2 is slowly coming to an end, only 2 episodes left, and it's always fun to do some speculation. So here are my predictions for what might happen in the last 2 episodes at some point, or maybe even later, who knows, so where the story is going. I have not seen the last 2 episodes, I don't have press access or any contact with Amazon, so this is pure speculation by my side based on the trailers and what we have seen so far in the episodes. My name is Chris, aka ThePhilosophersGames, and of course, spoiler warning for those who have not seen episode 6 of season 2 yet. But let us start. We begin with an overview of my predictions. The stranger is Gandalf, and he goes to rescue Nori, of course. His staff will be from Gundabale's tree. Dark Wizard is not Saruman, and maybe a blue wizard or an unknown Istar. Elrond manages to only bring in a small army to Eregion and needs more troops and talks to Prince Durin for help. Prince Durin then convinces the dwarves to help Eregion against the will of his father and has success to some degree. 9 rings are forged, but Celebrimbor suspects something and tries to destroy the rings, but fails. Adar is killed by Sauron. All of Galadriel's and Elrond's companions die in battle. Númenor sends troops to Middle-earth and tries to find the men who they know as Halbrand due to the vision, and maybe also help in the Eregion conflict. Gil-galad with his spear Aeglos or Arondir kill Damrod. Númenórean ships appear in Pelargi again, and this way Isildur can return to Númenor, and he respects trees now. Maybe due to some reason he might take Estrid with him. Gil-galad is delayed and also joins the Eregion battle later, maybe with Númenor's help, which he had a vision of. Sauron escapes with the crown and the rings. He might need the crown for crafting the one ring or to control the orcs, or both. Galadriel confronts Sauron with the crown, and mind shenanigans happen again. Elrond might found a stronghold that becomes Rivendell, and here he has to heal people after the war and becomes known as a healer. I think I forgot something, but some of these points I will discuss in a bit more detail now. The first big point I want to discuss is who is a stranger and potentially who is the Dark Wizard. I'm not a huge fan that they kept this mystery box alive for 2 seasons. That's, in my opinion, a bit excessive, but here we are, and that's a topic for a different video. So I think every hint we have gotten in every episode where the stranger appears is he must be Gandalf. If he would wear a grey hat, he would definitely look like Gandalf with his grey robes. He definitely has the looks for this. At the end of season 1 he says, "Always follow your nose," which is a Peter Jackson Lord of the Rings quote from Gandalf, and it is not in the books, but it's very iconic in my opinion. And then at the beginning of season 2 he has a vision, and there he sees a staff which looks quite similar to the staff Gandalf has in, for example, the Peter Jackson films as well. Then Nori and Poppy say he needs a Gand. Gundabale says or asks, is he a grand elf? Then in episode 6 Tom Bombadil says to the stranger the most iconic Gandalf quote in existence, just in a twisted way. And of course, I would not have needed an origin story for that quote, to be honest, but that I think is so far maybe the biggest hint, I have to admit. Further, they talk about that he should become a servant of the secret fire, or that his heart should be in the service of the secret fire. Then, in season 1, he draws a rune on the ground where Nori first meets him and brings him some food, and this rune looks like the G rune, just maybe a bit mirrored that, for example, Gandalf also paints on the door of Bilbo in The Lord of the Rings. Then, in season 1, we also see him whispering to some moths, so that's also a Peter Jackson Lord of the Rings reference, not in the books, but still very iconic, I think. As you can see, there are tons of quotes and references, and if you notice more, feel free to post them in the comment section, but it would be very strange if you hint at the stranger being Gandalf for now 2 seasons, and then at the end he is not Gandalf. That would, writing-wise, make no sense, except the payoff would be massive for him not being Gandalf. And I don't see this, because then he would be, let's say, a blue wizard. He gets a blue jacket of Tom Bombadil and becomes a blue wizard. The problem is, most people don't know the blue wizard. They don't have any connection to a blue wizard. That is just not a great payoff to just hint over 2 seasons, yeah, this guy is totally Gandalf, and then at the end, no, he's not, got you. He's just some random wizard you have never heard about. That would be bad writing, to be honest. I know there are a lot of hardcore book fans out there, me included. I would love it to be a blue wizard, not gonna lie. But I think for most normal viewers who have maybe seen the Peter Jackson films, this payoff would be not big enough to not be Gandalf, to be honest. Especially, why would you give a blue wizard the most iconic Gandalf quote in existence? That makes also no sense. As a result, yeah, it must be Gandalf. I don't see, unfortunately, any other way. You could maybe argue it's Radagast, but I think he's not close enough to nature for that. There are no writing efforts into this direction. Saruman is the man of skill. The stranger is a bit clumsy, so I think he doesn't really fit Saruman as well. Also, the stranger will, of course, and that is what Tom Bombadil actually wants from him, go for Nori, listen to the secret fire vision, and then when he's there, he will get a branch of Gandalf's tree, and that will be his staff, and then he will become Gandalf. Speaking of Saruman, though, the Dark Wizard definitely has the looks to be Saruman for sure, and we know Saruman was in the East for some time as well, but I think that is bait. There were rumors that Amazon negotiated some rights to use some blue wizard material, whatever that means, and I think he will be a blue wizard, and him being Saruman is just bait for the book fans. The reason for that is that him being Saruman makes, in the wider context of The Lord of the Rings, no sense. Of course, Saruman is later an antagonist as well, but he started as a good guy. So this would also mean that here Saruman fights against Gandalf, then maybe he becomes good, then he becomes the leader of the Istari and the White Council later, and then he becomes evil again. That makes literally no sense. He must be one of the blue wizards, otherwise the writers would be absolutely crazy, but I don't know, maybe they are, who knows. The writers do whatever they want and sometimes don't care much about the lore, though to be fair, both being blue wizards would make lore-wise the most sense if I'm honest. So I'm still hoping for that, but I don't see how the stranger can be a blue wizard, to be honest. Like, the hints are just too massive for that. What speaks for the Dark Wizard being a blue wizard is also that in a letter, there are like 3 versions of the blue wizards. We don't know much about them anyway. And in this one version, they form secret or magic cults in the East. So that would definitely fit the Dark Wizard, to be honest. And also, when we see the trackers, we often see the color blue on them. And on the horse, there is blue paint on them. Maybe that's a hint towards the color blue for him. And maybe he put his blue robes away at some point when he became the leader in the East. So that's definitely a possibility. Another one would be a strange quote from the Unfinished Tales that basically says that the number of Istari is not known, but their chief were 5. So in theory there could be more Istari as well, and he's just a completely unknown Istar. That would also be a possibility, I think. Then in this context, what is also interesting is that 9 rings will be forged, 9 rings of power, and those rings here in the show will directly be given to men. It is different in the books, but let's not talk about that. What is interesting from the books, we know that 3 rings go to Númenóreans and 1 goes to an Easterling, at least 1, so to say. And in the Unfinished Tales, he's called Kamul, the Shadow of the East, or in another version, he's simply called the Black Easterling. I could imagine that this will connect the Rings of Power plot to the Rune plot at some point. Maybe in Season 3 they introduce a new character there. Actually, we need quite a few men to be introduced, 9 at least. We have enough Númenóreans by now that could become an Nazgul, like everybody is kind of a candidate for that. But I think what is interesting is that we still need 1 Easterling and 5 more. Maybe some more Easterlings. Maybe we also go to Harad or something. Very hard to tell which people will get a ring. Maybe Theo gets one at some point as Lord of Pelargir or something. Who knows? Will be interesting to see. And I think it is impossible that they will introduce 6 or 5 new characters in 2 episodes at the end of season 2. I don't see this. Maybe we get a hint who gets the ring, but who these people are exactly, we learn the next season. That is kind of my prediction. Then we have the Númenórean plotline, which seems very isolated from the Middle-earth plotlines right now, but I see a way to connect both of them. In episode 6 we have seen that Pharazôn uses a Palantir and he sees somebody who he knows, Halbrand. And I could imagine that now in secret or in some way he says, well, let's go to Middle-earth and expand there a little bit. And in secret he searches for Halbrand and wants to bring him to Númenor. And then from there the Númenórean plotline can start as we know it from the books, with Sauron being brought there at some point, and then it unfolds from there. I don't see this happening in season 2 though. I think this might be something for season 3. But I could imagine that is definitely how they will make things. The problem is Halbrand or Sauron still has to make the One Ring, so that is a missing part, and I don't see them doing this in 2 episodes, so this might also be something for the next season, but who knows? And of course, in the books, everything is very different. However, if my speculation or prediction here is correct, I could imagine that Númenor sends some troops to Middle-earth, and those by accident might stumble upon the orcs, Adar and the elves fighting and then intervene, because Númenóreans for sure don't like orcs as well, so they will definitely fight against those. And then this is how they connect back to how the books describe this war, though the Númenóreans had an impact on this war much later in it, so after Eregion, but it's hard to tell if the show portrays the whole conflict or just the Eregion part of it. We will find out soon, I think, and there are only 2 episodes left, so I can't imagine that this might be much of a topic, at least in season 2. Maybe we see more of this in season 3, but it's hard to predict. What I also find very hard to predict is what is going on in Lindon. We know Elrond has to convince Gil-galad, and we know from the trailers that Elrond, with like a cavalry, is attacking the orcs as well and is fighting in Eregion. We even know that Gil-galad might be there, so he could be successful, though I could also imagine that he might not be that successful, and then he has to organize like a little army on his own in Lindon and convince people to help him out or whatever, and then he goes there against the wishes of the king, which would be strange, but it would fit totally the writing of Lindon, to be honest, because there everybody does what he wants and it has no consequences. So there is that, and I could also imagine that maybe Gil-galad has seen that the Númenóreans might appear or something, and he's waiting for them because he says, we don't have a chance alone. He needs like an ally, it seems. In the books, the ally would be, interestingly, Númenor. So there's that, and I could imagine that he might join the fight just later, and Elrond just organizes an army on his own. In this context, however he does it, he goes to Khazad-dûm and talks to his friend Prince Durin. We know this trailer scene also where they talk to each other, and we know from the trailer also that Prince Durin tries to convince the dwarves to go and fight. We have not seen this yet, and I could imagine that this then leads to new conflict between Prince Durin and King Durin in Khazad-dûm yet again, and that he finds some dwarves that also come to battle there, which also would fit to what the books describe here in regard of the Eregion battle. Also, Galadriel has told Adar that Elrond has her ring, and that is why I think he becomes a high-value target for Adar and the orcs, and we have this vision scene from Galadriel. If you stop it, you can see that Elrond is taken prisoner and threatened with a knife by the orcs, and as a result, I think this might have to do with this, and then potentially something happens, who knows, and changes things. It's very tough to tell what's going on. I also would predict that Celebrimbor will look through Anatar at some point, at least notice that something is very fishy and he should not trust him, and then potentially Sauron forces him to continue or whatever. We have a scene from the trailers as well. And then further, what I also think is that Celebrimbor tries to destroy those 9 rings, but he can't at the end. And then at some point Sauron gets those rings and might escape. In this context, I talked about Elrond being taken prisoner by the orcs, I could also imagine that this way Adar tries to get the 3 rings for his crown. He might get the one from Elrond, and he has also Galadriel and says to Gil-galad, I want your ring as well, give me the rings. So there might be something like that as well. Hard to tell if Círdan will be present there as well, who knows. But we definitely know that Adar wants these 3 rings of power. Also we have this troll Damrod, who also plays a role in all of this. It's hard to tell what role exactly. I could imagine that Arondir or Gil-galad kill the troll, because Gil-galad has to become a legend, and so this would be a very prestigious fight for him and his reputation for sure. So I could imagine this might be the case, but Arondir also needs something to do. Maybe they do some teamwork together. Very hard to tell. Further, I also could imagine that the crown that Adar has, the crown of Morgoth, we know that Sauron will get this crown at some point, for sure, from trailer material. And as a result, I could imagine he escapes from there, kills maybe Adar, gets the crown, and is out of all of this, leaves this behind. Maybe Galadriel and so on follow him, because we also see like a confrontation between both of them. And I could imagine he takes this crown then to Mordor and forges the one ring out of it. Like every time there was like Mithril needed to make those rings, here he needs something very special, very powerful. Maybe he uses the crown of Morgoth instead as one of the ingredients needed for the One Ring. But it's hard to tell if the One Ring will be forged at the end of Season 2 or if it will be something for Season 3. It's very hard to tell in my opinion, though I think we get a hint that he now goes with the crown to Mordor or something like that. Because there's maybe a bit too much focus on this crown in this season, and as a result there must be some meaning behind it or some twist. And I could imagine maybe it's not only an anti-Sauron weapon, so to say, but also maybe some part of it is taken to create the One Ring, or it becomes then also the crown of Sauron later, then he takes over the orcs or something. I could definitely see that there might be some connection here. Maybe this crown is needed to control the orcs later. That's also definitely a possibility. Then in this confrontation between Galadriel and Sauron regarding this crown, I can also definitely see that there are some mind shenanigans going on, because in this one scene we have more this Anatar look, and then in another we see Halbrand without a beard and so on. So I definitely could imagine there will be some Sauron tries to get into Galadriel's mind again and maybe convince her or whatever. Something like this might happen there as well. Might be episode 8 then. Then for the people who know the books quite well, will we get, let's call it, the banner? I could think so, that this might be a possibility, to be honest, but yeah, we will see. I also think Adar will definitely die. That I would not be surprised about, and I would think that Sauron will kill him. Then in the Southlands we have Theo, Isildur, Estrid and so on. Very difficult to foresee what happens here. I could imagine that if Númenor sends troops to Middle-earth again, that also some might be sent to Pelargir for some reason. And then here in this context, Isildur has an opportunity to come back to Númenor and then be part of that plot line again, maybe taking Estrid with him. That would be a possibility. I feel like this plot there is basically done for now, and not much is going to happen. I'm not even sure if we will see it again in Season 2, but I definitely can see that maybe the Númenóreans might return to this place for searching for Halbrand. We also still have Arondir. Will he survive or not? Very difficult to say, I think. I hope he does, because I really like the character and the actor. Would be unfortunate. I hope they find a good purpose for this character. He found this map at the beginning of episode 6, and maybe, I don't know, that's the camp of Adar on the map or something. He goes there and finds something there. Very tough to tell. One could argue maybe he tries, or he potentially finds Galadriel and tries to free her there or whatever. I don't know though, because we know Galadriel is later in this cage during the battle or something, and there it would make no sense if he frees her previously, so there's that. Of course, there would be much more to discuss and say, and I for sure forgot something and some ideas I had previously, but the video is already far too long and I still have to edit it, so I will end it here and say thank you people for watching. If you liked the video, feel free to press the like button and subscribe, and maybe let me know about your ideas and predictions for the last 2 episodes, maybe also for season 3 and so on. It would be interesting to know what people think, and tell me what you think about my predictions here as well. We will see how right I am. My last prediction video I did at the end, or close to the end of season 1, was pretty spot on in many ways, so I hope I can keep my track record here. Also, of course, huge shout outs to all the people supporting me here in all the different ways. Thank you so much for that. And I would also say maybe see each other on one of the live streams. We do analysis live stream every time a new episode comes out. And also there will be a first impressions video and so on. So there will be Rings of Power content until the show is over. Then we return to normal lore content again. I guess some people look forward to that as well. But for now, there will be Rings of Power stuff here on this channel, and I would say thank you people again for watching, and see you next time. Goodbye.